The lights inside the Nashville arena dimmed to a soft, honey gold glow as thousands of fans rose to their feet. It was the final night of the annual Harmony Honors, a celebration of country music legends and the artists who helped shape the sound of the last decade. But this year, everyone knew the highlight wasn't a performance, it was the tribute. Blake Shelton, the man who had spent years swinging between chart toppers and chair-swiveling charm on The Voice, was being honored for his contributions to music, mentorship, and the show that had become his second home. Backstage, Gwen Stefani adjusted the sparkling sunflower yellow jacket she had chosen for the evening, Blake's favorite color on her, of course. She could hear the thunderous applause as the announcer introduced the segment dedicated to her husband. Her heart fluttered. She had performed for massive crowds for decades, but tonight felt different. Tonight, she wasn't the pop icon. She wasn't the fashion rebel. She was Gwen, the woman who loved Blake Shelton deeply and sincerely. What she didn't expect, however, was the social media storm brewing outside the arena walls. The rift everyone noticed. For weeks leading up to the event, fans had speculated on whether Gwen would acknowledge her ex, the one whose name still occasionally surfaced in interview headlines and nostalgic playlists. Some expected her to use the moment to reflect on everything, her past, her growth, and how Blake had been part of her healing. Others thought she might nod to the long road that had brought her to this stage. But Gwen had already made her choice. Tonight wasn't about old wounds or old love. Tonight was for Blake. And she wasn't going to dilute that with even a single syllable about her ex. As she stepped onto the stage, silhouettes of thousands holding up glowing phones created a starry backdrop. A single acoustic guitar chord rang out, and the crowd fell into an expectant hush. Gwen smiled, the kind that touched her entire face, soft, genuine, unshaken. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady but warm. "Tonight, we celebrate a man who has changed so many lives, including mine." Backstage, Blake peeked from behind the curtains, watching her with the same affection that had made the world fall in love with them as a couple. His cowboy hat dipped as he ducked deeper behind the curtain, bashful, proud, amazed. "When Blake and I first met," Gwen continued, "I knew absolutely nothing about country music. I was this girl in plaid pants and combat boots trying to understand why this tall, sweet man cared so much about songs with tractors in them." The audience laughed. "But he taught me," she said, "not just about the music, but about what it means to be grounded, to be real, to be loved without conditions." A soft murmur rippled through the arena. Gwen had spoken publicly about Blake before, but never like this, never with a voice so unguarded. It felt intimate, like a page from a journal she'd never intended to publish. Twitter lit up. "Wait, no mention of the ex. OMG. She's making it clear tonight is about BLAKE. This is the loudest silence I've ever seen." Yet Gwen stood tall, refusing to waver. "I want to sing this next song for him," she said, turning toward the guitarist waiting behind her. "It's one we wrote together, a song about finding something beautiful when you least expect it." The song that said everything. The opening notes drifted into the air, a gentle, country-kissed melody that fans knew instantly. Wildflower Love. It had been one of the first songs the couple had ever released together, but tonight, Gwen's voice carried something rawer. She sang as though every lyric blossomed straight from her chest. Blake watched from backstage, his eyes glistening. He remembered writing that song with Gwen in his Oklahoma home studio. She had been nervous about sounding too pop, and he had just laughed, saying, "Darlin', you could sing the phone book and I'd still hear country in your heartbeat." As her voice soared through the final chorus, the entire arena swayed in unison, lights twinkling like fireflies. When the song ended, Gwen lowered the microphone. Fans waited, some fully expecting she'd pivot into a reflective speech involving her past. But she didn't. Instead, she said simply, "Blake, thank you for showing me that love doesn't have to hurt to be real." The crowd erupted. Backstage reaction. As Gwen walked off stage, Blake wrapped her in a bear hug before she could take a full breath. "That was wow," he murmured, voice thick. "You didn't have to say any of that." "I wanted to, she whispered. He pulled back slightly, searching her face. And you didn't mention. I didn't come here to talk about the past, she said softly. I came here to honor you. For a moment, Blake had no words, a rarity that made Gwen's lips curve into a smirk. Then he kissed her forehead, whispering, You're something else, Gwen. Fans react, shock, praise, and endless debate. By the time Gwen returned to her seat, social media had exploded into a frenzy. Some fans were stunned. She really didn't bring up her ex at all. This is the closure the world needed, but didn't expect. Others praised her. Gwen choosing love over old drama is the classiest thing ever. Respect, tonight was about Blake and she nailed it. A few debated whether she should have given a more comprehensive emotional tribute, but even those conversations were drowned out by the overwhelming admiration for the sincerity she brought to the moment. Blake's tribute speech that sealed the night. When it was Blake's turn to speak, he took the stage with a mix of swagger and humility. I was gonna say a bunch of stuff I rehearsed, he joked, but then Gwen went up here and blew my speech out of the water. The crowd laughed. He glanced toward her, eyes soft. You're the reason I keep doing this. You're the reason half my songs make any sense anymore. Gwen blinked rapidly, touched. Thank you for being my home, Blake finished. The moment that lives on. After the show, Gwen and Blake walked hand in hand through a hallway lined with producers, artists, and old friends. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and fans online continued dissecting every second of the tribute. But Gwen felt light, lighter than she had in years. She had said what she came to say. She had honored the man she loved. And she had left her past exactly where it belonged. Behind her. If you want, I can also write a shorter version, a follow-up story, or a clickbait headline set.